What's up, guys? We are back, and we are talking today about Ohio Sprint Speedweek and looking at the numbers and trying to compare and contrast them to years past, right? So this was the 42nd Ohio Sprint Speedweek. Now, I don't have data for all 42 years by any means, but we do have data and all of the data since 2009 from sprintcarratings.com. Would like to thank Bill once again over there for all the hard work that he does on that website and providing us with some of these numbers here that you're going to see on the board today, and give you a good idea about, how Ohio Sprint Speedway went this year. There was obviously a lot of uncertainty, a lot of doubt with what was going on with Ohio Sprint Speedweek this year, with the selling of the All-Stars to High Limit, and then High Limit not taking and making a speed week out of, what the All-Stars did in Ohio. A lot of people didn't really know what was going to happen. The Fast on Dirt series comes through, and they saved the day. And they put together a 9-race schedule and some pretty good money on the line as well. And a lot of people supported it. And you'll see today in this video some of the parts that were better from years past and some of the parts that were not as good. And once again, this data is from 2009 to 2024, every single speed week through those years, right? So without further ado, let's get into it. So there was supposed to be 9 races, but there was only 8. We had a rain out. The feature got rained out at Fremont. So we got 8 races on the board. Attica Raceway Park, it started off the week with Cap Henry getting his 3rd career Speed Week victory. Then at Waynesfield Raceway Park, Cale Thomas got his first ever Ohio Speed Week win. And it was the same song, different dance. The next night at Wayne County, Jordan Ryan got his first ever Ohio Speed Week win. Danny Sams kept the tradition going, kept the streak alive at Hilltop Speedway. He got his first ever Speed Week win, and at the time, it was the biggest win of his career. Then the next night, it was a different Danny. Danny Dietrich got his 5th career win with the Ohio Speed Week at Sharon Speedway here in Ohio. Danny Sams then won again, topping his biggest win of his career and 2 nights later at Muskingum County. And then at Millstream, it was Cap Henry with his 4th win of his career during this week. And Atomic Speedway, the finale. Then once again, Danny Sams upped his biggest ever win in his career. $10,000 went to him at Atomic Speedway for his 3rd win of the week and 3rd of his career during this Ohio Speed Week. Looking at the point standings, how it all shook out after the 8 nights of action, Cap Henry was the champion. It was his first ever Ohio Speed Week title. He won the championship pretty mightily, over 164 points over Cale Thomas. 190 points back was Danny Sams. 195 back was Zane DeVault, and 247 points behind was Travis Philo. But Cap Henry did not have the most winnings on the week. That actually went to Danny Sams. He had $22,800 won over those 8 nights. Cap Henry not too far behind, $22,515. Cale Thomas, who obviously we mentioned scored one of the wins, $10,250 to him. Greg Wilson, $9,620. We did not talk about him over here or over here, but it was a decent week for Greg Wilson. And Danny Dietrich, on the strength of that win at Sharon, $9,300. He had the 5th most in earnings on the week during Ohio Sprint Week. Now over here, the most cars and the least cars of the week. So the most cars went to Sharon. They had 54 cars show up for their race. And then I cannot remember off the top of my head, but there was another race on the week that had 53 cars. And those were the 2 most of the week. But then at the least amount of cars, it was Hilltop and Atomic at 32 cars. But still, pretty solid car count on both ends, right? I mean, a high of 54 and a low of 32 is still pretty darn good in my book, right? The most top 5s on the week went to Cap Henry. He had 7 out of 8 races. He was inside the top 5. Danny Sams had 4. And then Greg Wilson, Cale Thomas, Travis Philo, and Zane DeVault all had 3. So couple of guys, Henry and Sams, very, very consistent throughout the week. Now, the one thing with Danny Sams is he did miss 2 features on the week, unlike Cap Henry, who was one of just 2 drivers to make every single main event. Now, looking at the average car count for the week, 41.8, which sounds absolutely fantastic, but when you stack it up against every single year since 2009, it is actually the 10th best year. So the 10th, I guess, worst year as far as the average car count goes. The best one was in 2009. They had 48.7 cars on an average during that Ohio Sprint Week back, what was that, 15 years ago, when they had 48.7 in 2009. Now, the total payout for the week was $201,020. That is 8th overall during the 16 years that we are looking at. So right there in the middle for the total payout. The most in the history of Ohio Sprint Week was 2022. They had $326,305 total paid out throughout the week of racing. Now, the total driver count, this is where this is the most ever, right? 104 different drivers took part in Ohio Sprint Week this week, and that is the most ever. It's actually tied for a different year prior to 2009, but I did not include it because we only are looking at 09 and above because I don't have all the data from 09 and below. And so 104 during this time span that we are looking at over the last 16 years, that is the most drivers in 1 week for Ohio Speed Week. So 104 different drivers, absolutely fantastic. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the least that they've ever had was in 2013. Only 72 drivers took part in in at least one race throughout the week. Now, looking at drivers that went to every single race, you would think that 12 was actually pretty good. Like there was 12 guys that went to every single race, but that is the worst of any of the years that we are looking at. Since 2009, this year, 2024, was the worst as far as each guy going to each race throughout the week. Only 12 of them. The best that we've ever seen, which is insane, in 2017, 24 drivers took part in every single race during Ohio Sprint Week. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Chase, sometimes there's 9 races in Sprint Week. Sometimes there's 7. Sometimes there was, I looked and there was like 2 years, there was only 4 races during Ohio Sprint Week because of rainouts and things like that. I'm not sure if 2017 was one of those years, but I would have to assume that with 24 guys making it to every race, that there had to be a pretty small schedule because when you put 9 races back to back to back to back or 8 races, that's when you're going to start losing guys during wrecks and travel and things like that. So this year was the worst they've ever had as far as guys going to every single race. Now, also in that same vein, drivers to make every feature this week, there was only 2 of them, Greg Wilson and Cap Henry. Now, due to Fremont actually raining out, they ran the heat races, they ran the B-Main, but the feature got rained out. Greg Wilson had actually not made the show at Fremont that night, but luckily for him, it did rain out, and so they did not count that into everything. And so he did actually make every feature that was contested. Him and Cap Henry, the only 2 guys, and that is the worst of any year since 2009 as well. The best year was 2018. They had 10 guys make every single feature of the week as well. Now, the last thing on the board here, we have different winners. They had 5 different winners on the week, as we talked about earlier. Cap Henry, Cale Thomas, Jordan Ryan, Danny Sams, Danny Dietrich. Those were the 5 winners, and that is tied for 3rd most of all time. 2017 was the most they ever had, was 7 different winners in that Ohio Sprint Week. And so 3rd was actually kind of like right in the middle because there was a lot of ties throughout the last 16 years. So not a bad number there as well. Now, a lot of these numbers that we've got going on here, I feel like this drivers at every race one, the drivers to make every feature, maybe even the average car count, maybe the different winners. I feel like a lot of that has to do with not being a all-star circuit of champions sanctioned deal where you have between 4 and 8 or 5 and 10 guys that follow that series around. You did not have that this year, right? There's not many guys that follow the Fast Series around full time like there is with the All-Star Circuit of Champions. A lot of teams with a lot more money to be able to go up and down the road and things like that. That was something that I think definitely attested to some of these numbers, like 16th and 16th and 10th and things like that, right? But there are some good things to look at, like 104 different drivers, contesting at least one feature. That's the best they've ever had. So there was a lot of good things and some bad things as well. But I thought overall, I tried to watch every race on Flow. I even went to one of the races at Millstream. But I thought there was great racing every single night. 5 different winners, really good car counts. You go to some of the best tracks. Obviously, the dust was a little bit crazy at a lot of places, but that's Ohio. We expect Ohio to be dusty, right? So other than that, I thought it was a really good week of racing, and I'm really thankful for the Fast on Dirt series for stepping up and making this happen. Next year, what will happen? Nobody knows. Will High Limit step in? Will Fast continue doing what it's doing? Nobody knows, but at least we got an Ohio Sprint Week in 2024. Had a really successful one. Some guys made a lot of money, and that was cool to see. And there was some great racing all the way throughout the week. And it also put a guy on the map. Danny Sams, I'm sure a lot of people did not know who he was prior to this week, but he has certainly jumped into the eye of a lot of race fans here throughout the week of Ohio Sprint Week. So great job by everybody involved at Fast and all these racetracks as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video looking at a deeper dive into the numbers of Ohio Sprint Speedweek here in 2024. Maybe you learned something new. Thank you guys so much for watching. We just crossed 2,000 subscribers today. Appreciate all your support, and we'll talk to you again here soon.